Alrighty, good morning ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another video. Cheers. So, last couple of videos out on the California Delta for the Yakabass KBF tournaments, and we had a solid showing, had a good day one, stumbled on day two, but the one thing I can say from those videos that particular weekend is it seems like the Delta has finally turned a corner and has really picked up. The bite has really picked up, and I'm not saying you're gonna go out there and catch giants. There's always that potential, but what I'm saying is it seems like typical Delta fishing, meaning if anything else, you can go out there and get numbers. A lot of activity, you know, you go up shallow, you can see the bluegill, you can see the bait, you see fish busting out there on top every so often. It just seems like the California Delta has finally really come to life. And though the weather wasn't a temperature you'd expect for summer Delta fishing, today and the next few days are some pretty hot temperatures, some more typical temperatures for this time of year out on the Delta, approaching 100 degrees I think today. And for that reason, we're heading back out to the California Delta. I've got all the rods and baits prepped, got 9 of them. Yeah, I know a lot of rods, but as I've mentioned, can't have too many rods out on the Delta. Every area, every situation calls for a different presentation. And usually what you have to do is kind of mix and match, try different things, experiment throughout the day, and hopefully, ideally, you can find that right exact combination, that bait, that presentation that the fish want. But to start this video, we haven't done it in a while. Gonna go over the setups, at least the starting lineup, the starting 9, given this time of year out on the Delta. First up, we've got a popper. Second rod, and the one we've been doing a lot of damage on, is a spinnerbait of all things. Next up, a Delta staple, something you have to have with you at all times of year on the Delta, the old drop shot. Something that has been on and off for me. It died down or cooled down the last trip out, but with this heat, this weather, today's tide, gotta have a punch with us. This could be a little bit early, but kind of going along the lines of the punch, hot weather, some moving tide. Could be buzzbait time soon, so have a buzzbait with us. Another finesse rod, and something that works year round, but can definitely target potential bedfish, maybe some post-spawn fish, and what better rig, wacky rig stick bait. Going along those same lines, shallow fish, spawning, post-spawn fish, fry garters. Mentioned there's a lot of bluegill up shallow. Gotta go with a bladed jig. Next up, and this is because I actually had one good fish during the tournament on this bait. It wasn't an epic bite, but it was definitely a bite that seemed to be improving, and hopefully today, like the other baits, with this rising temperature, it starts to really turn on. Got the trusty frog. And last, but certainly not least, because it is the Delta, we've got a second frog set up. This is a poppin' frog. So those are the setups, the bait selections, at least to start. And I'd say these are probably the main baits I'd throw this time of year out on the Delta. Not really much changes, maybe some color, small tweaks here and there, but those are some pretty good staples to have with you this time of year. And I'm sure you put in the time, put in the work, one of these will get bit, one of these will be the ticket. Let's load up the kayak, make the drive to the launch for another day of fishing out on the Delta. Shoot, might as well get her started. Ooh, little one. The little one tried to get the Kermit. unmolested. Another small one though, little one poking at it. Man, I can't believe it's already 7 o'clock. We haven't had a fish in the boat yet. I know what we got to do though. Yep, I know what we got to do. Let's just get the skunk out the boat. What was that, second cast? Yep, always can rely on a worm out here. Not gonna complain. The big ones bite this too. Just need a little slimage in the kayak. Another one. Ooh, that's a little better, I think. Didn't see how, you know, you wonder if I'd gone over this area with a different bait, if that fish would have bit. A little meaty one. Thank you, sir. Alright, well, while it's working and while we're getting bit, why change, right? Why try to get fancy on them? It's fun catching fish. There's a better one. A keeper. Let's just net him. There we go. Old chunker. Thank you, sir. Another one. Yeah, they're loaded up on this bank right here. Just let me take a peek. Let me see. Wouldn't you know, the smallest one is on the top water. Kind of looks like a future 10-pounder though. I mean, look at the dimensions of this 4-incher. Right? One more cast with this guy. Unless we get a big one, we're going back to the worm. Caught some of my biggest fish out on the delta. Just throwing a simple wacky worm. There we go. Man, these fish are strong fish. Not the biggest fish in the world, but river fish are a little stronger. Thank you, sir. Avoided the landing penalty, right? A little keeper. Man, it's so funny. If you guys have been following the channel this year, earlier on especially, Delta was so tough. You thought that every bass in the Delta got wiped out. Time of year conditions change everything. These fish were always here. They just weren't catchable earlier on. Not easily, at least. There we go. I could do this all day. It's fun. Oh, shoot. Don't get cocky, though. Don't get cocky. All short and fat. These little guys are eating good, that's for sure. Skipping a lot of this duckweed and grass. I think right now with this tide moving, these fish are, well, at least some of them are out in the open. There's definitely a little feed window going on. As that tide drops, gets real low, current stops, sun gets out, gets hotter. I think that's when those fish will start to move in that grass, and that's when we can start to frog and punch. We'll see though. Never know. There we go. Oop. Nope. Thought for like 1 second it was a better one. Oh, I made myself like Inu rig. Is that what it's called? The Inu rig? I made myself one. There, that fish made it for me. Remember that fad, guys? Is that still around? Is that still a thing? Did that ever end up working for anybody? You guys know what I'm talking about? Overlay it on the screen right here. But when they're biting, they usually eat everything. We're certainly getting our monies out of this worm. Another bite. Yeah, these bare banks or at least a group of fish are. You gotta run into a big one eventually, right? Oh. I should do that as a contest or a challenge. The 5 smallest bass. If I put my mind to it, I think I could get 25 inches. That as soon as it landed. Let's see if he had a buddy with him. Had a little buddy with him. What? How'd you miss it, dude? Maybe I really should do that smallest fish challenge. Finally got one. Oop. Another small one, but the fish ate it. That's good. Gave me a sign, gave me a clue. I can get bit on this bait. Another bite. Yeah, see, they're still eating the spinnerbait. That's good. That's good. Because I do think in general, you know, you catch 20 fish on a worm, you catch 20 fish on a spinnerbait out here, probably going to have a bigger overall fish with the spinnerbait ones. On average. It's just on average. Same goes for other techniques. Frogs, punch, stuff like that. But you just never know out here. How? You are so ambitious. I mean, good for you. Eating something bigger than you. Actually eating it too. Got the whole thing in his mouth. Keeper. Alright. Only got a keeper. Almost time for a worm change. Getting close. finally got a puncher. Come here, buddy. Yay. That's good. Changed colors a couple of times. Better quality fish, most likely on this technique. Chunky one. Well, it might be punchy time. We'll see. Seems like the bite kinda got a little tougher. I don't know if it was an area thing or tide or what, but the worm started to fizzle out. So maybe those fish that were up in the banks in that open water, maybe they're starting to shift, getting under that cover. I swear half the time out here, well, not even half, I'd say 90% of the time out here fishing the delta in the summer, it's just junk fishing. I mean, you might be able to find a pattern, but usually you're throwing a bunch of different stuff throughout the day. We got the color right now. Not a big one, but a fun one. Alright, good to see the punch bites back. Last time we were out, tournament day 2, and really one as well. Our punch bite that we had in practice pretty much fizzled out. I don't think I got a single punch bite actually during the tournament, which was disappointing because that was a major game plan for me. They did spray in the area that I was fishing too, so that could play a factor. Everything over here looks pretty good. Everything's pretty green. For sure we'll get one in there. Now the tide is just about at the low point for today. You can still see the water's pushing out. When it switches, when it starts to come back in and fill up, that's probably when we'll get bit, I'd imagine. This morning it was good. We had a little bit more water and it was moving out. Obviously caught a lot of small fish, but just kind of told you they were setting up and they were eating. So hopefully same thing happens when this water moves back in. Nice buzzbait fish, all right. I was just gonna say, sometimes in the past I've gotten on some buzzbait fish with that last little bit of outgoing tide. It's like that, I don't know, it like just imitates one last like bait fish or something trying to escape. Go for the deeper water and the fish will set up and they just munch it out of reaction or what. But I don't know, buzzbait to me is always kind of like an escape bait. Like you pretend you're the bait and it's just like frantically trying to get away. Go for deeper water. And that fish was set up perfectly to eat that bait, so. Ooh, another bite. I don't know, I'm not gonna say anything. Let's not jinx it, let's just keep fishing. Ooh. Interesting. Very interesting. It's 3 bites in like 2 minutes. Jeez. I'm gonna put a hole in my boat. Come on, biggin, where are you at? Not a biggin, but I'll take you. I love a buzzbait bite. I forgot how fun this is. Yeah, I think I'd rather catch them like this over a worm. I feel like at any moment this thing could just get smashed. What's kind of funny is when I was prepping the rods and the baits yesterday or last night, the two rods that I almost didn't bring, or at least tie on, were a Senko and a Buzzbait. Usually my Senko bite out here is much better in like April, May, and then the Buzzbait bite is more like August. But I guess this year Delta is just completely different. Time for the worm again. Yep, bass are over here. Oh, shit. Man, there's so many fish here. Again, a lot of small ones, but whatever. I'm seeing a couple of decent fish cruising around. I think that's the first time all year on the Delta I've actually seen, you know, non-dink bass actually cruising around. We're on the long cast program. We're gonna get a better bite. I can't see it, because if I see it, it has already seen me. And we know how that goes out here. I make those long casts for unsuspecting fish. Yeah, time to turn around. Let's try drop shotting them. Drop shot fish, okay. Man, we're catching them on like every single bait today. What have we not caught them on? I think just the bladed jig are the only baits that we haven't had a bite. Man, that thing was pulling. Almost ripped the rod out of my hand. How did we hook them like that? Jeez, how does that happen? When the front of your kayak looks like that, you know it's been a junk fishing kind of day. I feel like I've seen some of the better fish a little bit deeper, and with the worm, weightless worm, it's just taking too long for it to get down to them. Those little dinks would pick it off before it had the chance to get to the bottom. I mean, I'm not catching really much better fish, but I feel like there's a better chance right now to get a better one on a drop shot or a bottom bait versus a weightless bait. Yeah, they are catching a little bit better ones, oddly enough. We'll return to the other baits, the punch, the frog, buzzbait for sure, but right now these conditions, this clear water, these fish kind of finicky. I feel like I gotta throw finesse. I don't think they're gonna come up and eat reaction. Little keeper. Drop shot getting the bigger bites. Look at this. Tide literally just switched. Everything that was basically floating out as water was dropping, it's coming back in now. Alright, current's moving. Tide's changed. Fish are biting. Oh, that's a real small one. You can see them on the bottom too. I think those are the better quality that we've been catching. 10 to 14 inches versus 6 to 10 inches. Again, that worm was just taking too long to get down there. The little dinkers were picking it off real quick. It's fun catching fish. I'm not gonna complain. And I know there's still a good chance at a big one. $97 degrees right now. Man, first really hot day of fishing I've had all year, but this day out of nowhere, big heat wave. Maybe it spurred on some of the fish. I think today would be a perfect representation of what I personally would expect for Delta summer bass fishing. You know, hot weather, a lot of active fish. You stand up anywhere shallow, you see a ton of bluegill, you see bass, but a lot of action today. To quickly recap, had our 9 different rods today ready to go just to see exactly what they might be biting, maybe figure out a pattern, something like that, play the tides and just really junk fish. And that's essentially what we did all day. I actually started out, I think, maybe 30-40 minutes without a bite, maybe one blow up on the frog. The tide was moving. We had a big tide change today. Started out really high, dropping all morning. With that tide still high, I decided to pick up the old worm 5-inch General and basically was throwing that right up against the bank. There was a little bit of a trough, a little bit of deeper water right there. It was Dink City for the most part, but they were munching on it. You could tell that these fish were setting up, they were feeding, and it's a lot of fun. I mean, I can't complain. That's usually the thing with the Delta. In the summer, you may not come out and catch a bunch of big fish or even a big fish, but usually you can always catch numbers, which I still have a lot of fun doing. But after that, water got pretty low, decided to do a little punching. I think we picked up a few random fish on the punch and some hyacinth mats. I think we even had a spinnerbait fish. The fish were biting today, the fish were feeding, and I think really had to do with that tide, that outgoing tide, just setting fish up. Even on a whim, saw some trees hanging in the water, and just about at the very end of low tide, saw an area that looked good for a buzzbait, picked up the buzzbait, got one on the buzzbait. I think we missed a few others and then got another small one. And then went way back towards the end of a slough, little dead end slough. Stood up, saw a ton of activity, ton of bluegill, small bass. Pretty much just went to town on those fish, again with that worm, but turned around, decided to fish a drop shot. There's so many small fish around me that weightless worm, I think, just couldn't get to the bottom to some of those better fish. So took a drop shot, started throwing that around, little purple worm, and I think really that actually got some better fish. Started catching not dinks, like semi-dinks, still a lot of fun, couple keepers here and there. And then I got excited. I got excited because it was hot, there was a lot of activity, the tide just switched, the water was starting to move in. But man, I guess these fish were not in a feeding window on the rising tide because it was a struggle. We may have had another fish or two, went through some of the same areas we fished previously, and pretty much came up empty-handed. Hey, I will take it. Certainly beats the skunk, certainly beats a tough day of fishing where you can't even catch a dink. I can't tell you how many times I've been on the Delta where I would do anything for a dink. So these days are still very much appreciated. It is hot. I'm gonna head home, sit in the AC and cool down. But as always, I thank you guys for watching, for coming along. I'll see you guys in the next one.